Across the board.
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 You're listening to Across the Board. Buckle up, because things are about to get interesting.
The other day, remember I was at my parents' house after work?
Yep.
So my aunt's there.
Okay.
And I fucking love my aunt. She is more involved in politics than anybody. Like, she will tell me things where I'm literally sitting there going like, who?
Yeah,
who are
like,
you talking about?
You had no news of this.
Yeah.
Just like,
yeah, she
find
knows
out.
all that stuff. Like, I'm like,
Right.
how do you know this stuff? Hold on. Time out. I can't remember if I hit record on one of the cameras. So yeah, like, and she's dropping names of like politicians and stuff. I'm like, how are you? But I guess she's, she's at home just looking stuff up and watching and digesting.
Well, she has
stuff
like
all
a
day.
passion for it too, I feel. So
Yeah.
I think she's more interested in that stuff than, someone like me, for example.
Well, like, I'm interested in it, but not to the point where I'm gonna like. My cousin's like that too. Like, he knows the names of every congressman and what state they're from. I'm like, dude.
And then there's me. I'm just like so disengaged. Like, I don't.
No, like, I'm engaged. I it's interesting to me, but at the same time, I'm not sitting there going like, hey, this guy, so and so from. It's the guy from Mississippi. I'm like, dude, like, who?
Who?
Literally, like, my cousin tells me sometimes, and I just play along. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool. He's gonna be watching this. He's like, that punk. But no, I know who most of these people are by like what their stance is and things they've done and said. But I don't know like what state they're from or by name. So
Right.
Anyway, the reason I bring that up is I don't know if you know this or not. But my aunt was like temporarily banned from Facebook multiple times.
No, she was not.
During COVID, because she would comment on stuff. Well, no,
Little auntie was banned.
So I think she was banned once or twice, like temporary restrictions, like once or twice.
Bro, for what?
My uncle though was banned multiple. I think they actually banned his account completely at one point. He had to open another one.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, it's because my uncle too, like he doesn't hold back. He's like, these scumbags.
Come on,
blah,
like,
blah, blah.
what are you gonna prove out?
No, so I get it. I get the passion. I really do. And the reason I bring all this up is like it's kind of screwed up because, and we're still seeing it happen today. On social media, like if depending on what you're talking about, so you can go on social media and you can say the stupidest stuff about how and it's actually quite disgusting and disturbing, and I don't condone any of this, but like there are people literally on social media. So remember a couple of weeks ago when the Secret Service stopped that guy outside the White House gate that had like guns and stuff with him, and they killed this guy. There were literally people on social media talking about like, it's okay, we'll get him next time, keep trying. Yeah. People have lost their fucking minds.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's not just a lot. It's absolutely dangerous because there unfortunately are a lot of people who are not.
Do they realize what they're saying though? Like this is.
Oh, they know exactly what they're saying.
I mean,
and I feel like these people that are saying this stuff also know that there are people out there who are disturbed and impressionable,
sure.
and that they're trying to reach those people that may actually try to do something, which is. Like, I don't care how much you lean one way or the other politically.
Yeah.
I don't care how far left or far right you are. You don't wish death upon people or even illness. Like, I wasn't a fan of Biden, but when they announced that he had COVID, I was like, poor guy, he's older. Hopefully he's going to be okay because, like, COVID affects older people more. I don't.
Well, I'm not a fan of any particular leader, but I would never.
But that's the thing is like how do you wish
that.
Not only wishing like harm, but like
Death,
actively promoting it. You know what I mean? Like actively promoting somebody going out and doing something.
Right.
So my point with all this is that people like that can post stuff like that and they get away with it somehow. Their accounts don't get banned. Their videos stay up. But God forbid you said, I'm not so sure about this COVID vaccine. All of a sudden you were banned and you were removed because of COVID disinformation. For some reason, freedom of speech only works one way.
So
apparently.
you need to go back to why your aunt was banned from Facebook. Did she say something like that or?
I don't. So again, She made some comments. I don't.
We don't have to tell,
I've seen a
we don't have to
couple of
say the
them. I've
comments.
seen a couple of them, but they were very one-sided comments.
Gotcha.
That's all. Nothing bad. Nothing like wishing harm on anybody or something like that. But
Yeah.
just they were just like they were actually quite comedic.
Yeah. I'm typically very careful. Honestly, I don't really comment or make comments on videos or posts or anything.
Anything
because it's just-
political, yeah.
not even that, just in general. And if I do, I'm just very careful with what I say and how I say it and what the cadence of it seems like and the tone.
Yeah.
I don't care to fight with people who are behind a screen.
Well,
It serves nothing for me.
so there's been a time or two where I've gone into discussions with people in comment sections on videos. And I've come to realize that I personally think that half, maybe more, of the users on social media are just bots.
Probably, yeah.
Because it's not that you can't even it's not that you can't convince them. It's no matter what evidence you bring forth in front of somebody and you say, hey, listen, but this and this, it's completely ignored, and they're just like, no, you're wrong because of X, Y, and Z. And even when that X, Y, and Z that they're citing, their facts that they're citing are completely bullshit, and you can disprove them with a quick Google search, they will hold strong to their argument based on these bullshit facts that they're
There's a
bringing.
lot of people like that.
Well, and that's part of the whole like media being one-sided. Depending on, and I've said this a million times, depending on what news channels you watch, that's what your opinion of an event is. Like, and we talked about this before, like that whole Hunter Biden laptop story. I knew about this before the election, but somehow it only became a thing in like, I think it was like 2021, like middle of 21 or end of 21. It was something like that. But like all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, have you heard about the Hunter Biden laptop? I'm like, yeah, dude, a year ago.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what you're watching, because some news stories and news organizations just won't cover stories, period. And it's like, I get it. Like you have an agenda and you have a politician that you're trying to protect, but like at the end of the day, it's like if you're going to call yourself a news organization, then hold true to the news. Do your freaking job.
Yes, that's true, but I'm sure this, as we've seen, presented in the media as or any type of media. You don't get anywhere by 100% telling the truth, and that goes for
Well, I get it.
anything that you do. And like you said, they're going for one or the other, right?
Yeah.
And they have to represent themselves that way. And there's certain media companies that are for this and against that, and vice versa. And that's just what they run with. And it's really up to the person to do their due diligence, to do their job, and to do their own research to find out the truth. Like, they don't owe you anything. Yeah, it's the news. I get it. But they don't really owe you anything. They're also trying to make money.
Well, and see, here's the thing is I get, and I'm 100% with you on that. Everybody should just look into everything, no matter what.
But a lot of people don't. That's the thing. They're like, oh, I'll just take your word for it, right? Whatever you say is true. So they'll just,
But that's the thing, is because in the past, news organizations were actually truthful and honest and reported everything.
Well, again,
to a certain extent.
You're talking about back in the day. Back in the day, we were still young. We were teenagers, we were kids, like back in the day. And it wasn't that long ago.
It's no, but I think, well, right along that same chord, it's maybe because social media wasn't around, the internet wasn't around to fact check things, so we just took everything for face value.
Absolutely.
But that plays into it, because the impression was, whether or not it was true, the impression was, back in the 80s, 90s, whatever, the impression was that the news was telling you the truth, whether or not they were.
But how was that? Why was that the impression, though? Why?
Because
in the 80s and 90s,
you couldn't disprove it.
Okay.
So whether or not they were, nobody knew that. They didn't know anything different.
But that doesn't mean it wasn't corrupt back then too. We just haven't proved it. Right?
I agree. I know what you're saying.
But we can go back and look at those videos and look at those tapes and speeches or whatever it is, and now decipher that, hey, what this person was saying was untrue, right?
Granted, but my point is that the general population's view was that the news tells the truth.
Yes, and I think that's still the
And that's
view
carried
now
over.
too,
That's
you
carried
know?
over now, but
Yeah.
now it's become a lot more. News stations have picked a side and dug in a lot deeper than they were back in the day.
But how do we know that?
Because you just watch old reports, like they just reported everything.
Yeah, but they're not. I mean, I think you'd have to talk to people who lived through that to really gauge if that's what happened.
Well, so the perfect example of this too, though, is like you talk to older people, whether it's like about politics or anything else, like COVID, yada yada yada. And all these older people will tell you, like, well, yeah, it was on the news, because that they believed everything that was on the news back then. I don't know if it was one sided back then. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But the point is that there's a lot more manipulation in news stories and just the way, the cadence and the wording that they'll use. And the fact that there's just no repercussions for a news organization
Yeah.
reporting bullshit. It's
that's
like
the problem.
well, look at, so for example, they will, like, they'll go back on a news article that they've published online, and let's say they reported something that wasn't accurate, right? So if you go back to that article a couple of months later, there will be a little in small print at the bottom saying correction, blah 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 blah. This was not actually correct, and this is actually what happened. They won't change the article itself. So the article itself still says the bullshit
Yeah.
information that they've said. Plus, it's not like it's a press release where it's like, oh, hey, you know, just so you guys know, we screwed this up. It's just this quiet thing that's added in. So that article that they reported a month ago, 2 months ago, that was complete bullshit. People still think that that's the truth.
And the redo of it is just them covering their asses.
Well, yeah, and they're not redoing anything. That's the
Exactly.
crazy part. Is they're not like,
You know, it's just, I think with time, the specifics have changed. The
Yeah.
narrative has changed a lot. And I think that with social media also in it, it just makes things more difficult. You know, you can watch the news, but you also get 3 different stories
absolutely, yeah.
that are related to what you just watched, but they say 3 different things.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to do your own research. You're the one who has to go find that out.
Well,
You can't rely on these sources all the time. Although we wish that we could. We wish that we could trust all of these sources. But it's also kind of comical, don't you think, when you have these big news stations who are one way or the other, and they're just being so disrespectful towards each other and so unprofessional. It's ridiculous.
I don't remember names, but just this in those last few days, I think I showed it to you. There was a CNN correspondent, anchor, whatever, somebody from CNN who was on the phone with somebody from Fox News talking about how he had white privilege. The dude she was talking to was a black guy.
Yeah, you showed me that.
So she completely had no idea. So it's like, you know, like you're saying, the disrespect, like automatically just say like, oh yeah, well, you don't know because blah, 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 trying to like
Yeah.
discredit the guy. And the dude's a black dude talking about, how do I have white privilege?
Right. And you know, I'm all for, you know, talking things out and you know, talking about issues, but there's also a respectful way to do that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you are on TV, you are the media, you are representing our country with the things that you are saying, whichever side you're on. Don't say stupid shit.
Well, and so this is exactly what we're talking about,
Yeah.
is the freedom of speech, right? Unfortunately, even though they're news reporters, they're respected, they're in front of millions of people on TV, they still have the right to say whatever the hell that they, you know. But this is my problem with this, is that you shouldn't have the right to say what you want to say if what you're saying is going to cause issues. Like, listen, issues are one thing, right? And this is the unfortunate fact is I should be able to say whatever the hell I want. I should be able to say, hey, the sky is falling, everybody, you know, say your last prayers. But the problem is that people believe this now. People have gotten so gullible to where they believe everything. So when you have news organizations that for months on end are comparing Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler, you get some crazy wacko that says, oh, this guy's the next Hitler, I better stop him, the world is going to love me for it. And then you get what happened in Pennsylvania.
But that begs the question: how far does freedom of speech go? Right.
Well, you can't. You'll fire in a crowded theater. You can't sit on a plane and say, "Hey, I have a bomb," and "Hey, no, it's my freedom of speech."
You can.
But there's repercussions, right?
There's consequences to everything that you say and everything that you do. So.
Well, and yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said you can't. You can. You're more than welcome to, but you're gonna pay the price. Mm-hmm. So same thing for news stations. News stations should have to pay a price if what they do creates an issue or misinforms people or whatever. Like if you're going to report a bullshit story, or if you're going to say stupid things like, for example, right now, just today I saw a clip of some dude on TV on a news show saying that Elon Musk is a liar, a Nazi, and a thief. Well, chances are he's gonna get sued for defamation or libel or whatever, and he's gonna pay the price of his freedom of speech. Like, great, you have that freedom, but there's another side to that.
Do you think I think that a lot of the times these media companies say these things just for attention and money, honestly, and they don't get in trouble for it. So why should they care? Kind of a thing. They don't. They don't have any repercussions. Like it's just. We'll just get over it in like a day.
Well, and I for one think that like anything that any company that considers themselves a news organization, if they do report bullshit, or if they don't report the full story, or if they manipulate a story, especially if they manipulate a story, I feel like there should be fines. There should be fines for these companies, ever increasing fines. So you get caught once, it's a $10,000 fine. You get caught twice, it's a $50,000 fine. And it just keeps going up.
I agree with you, but honestly, that's such a fairy tale. The world doesn't work like that.
But imagine if through that mechanism, imagine you had news organizations that actually told the truth, that showed you the full video, that didn't cherry pick the piece that fits their story.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if they don't do that, they don't have stories. They don't make money. And the whole business comes crumbling down.
Yeah, but these assholes make enough money as it is.
I know. I'm not saying anything. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Like, I get it.
But okay, for example, like, and I know CNN does all kinds of weird shit because CNN is just struggling to keep their viewership because they've gotten caught so many times with fake stories that people just don't trust them anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate because that company hasn't been very popular for a long time anyway. Like I think if I'm not mistaken, what put them on the map is that they had reporters on the ground during Desert Storm in 91.
Okay.
91 or 92. And that's really what put them on the map as a serious news organization. And in 30 short years, they've managed to flush build up their reputation and then flush it down the toilet. For anybody that watches CNN, I commend you because I've tried, and it's like watching a serious version of The View. It's just one-sided opinion all day long. Yeah. I'm not saying that Fox News is much better. Fox News is the opposite way, but it's one-sided opinion.
Exactly.
So I'm not saying that like, oh, watch this, not that. I'm just saying that no matter which news station you're watching, you should probably just watch the opposite to see what they're saying and get the full story.
In a perfect world, we'd have one or two news stations that actually report the truthful
that are just news, straight down the line.
They're just like, exactly.
And you could just go to them. Yeah.
They just tell you what's happening, even local news,
Yeah.
They'll just like tell you what's happening and be done with it. But unfortunately.
But the thing that like weirds me out about news stations is that it seems like they're all owned by the same giant corporation.
Obviously, of course they are.
And some of them are even on opposite sides of the political spectrum. Like, it's kind of crazy.
I personally think it's all an act. It's all an act.
I don't disagree with you. I think that everything that we're watching is just this giant play that's being put on for the American people.
I mean, they're reporting the news, if you want to call it that.
Sometimes it's not even news; it's bullshit.
But they're like, it's like actors playing a part.
No, literally, no. And I'm not even talking about just news. I'm talking about the politicians, the president, everybody.
If anyone, sorry, But if you can actually sit there and say that any of these people actually give a shit about you, sorry, but that's just a naive way of thinking. No one gives a shit.
No, they care about their own pockets.
No,
and maybe they're friends.
Some of them might care about making the world a better place, and I really hope they do.
There's a few.
But generally speaking, no one cares.
No.
And for people to get in fights and super arguments, lose people in their lives because of these people, it's crazy.
Well, you know? Like, for example, and I make this argument all the time. I'm like, who in their right mind would campaign, raise and spend tens of millions of dollars to secure a job that pays $160,000 a year? It makes no sense.
It doesn't.
Why would you want? There is some kind of backdoor like power and
that is what I said about this current administration is you run for the win because you can and you want to see if you can get it.
Well, I think so. Here's the thing. The funny thing is I think with the current president, I think that the first time that he ran for president, I genuinely think it was let me see if I could do this. Because even when he won, he was completely unprepared for it.
Yeah.
I don't know how true it is, but the stories were that like the first day as president, he's like, hey, where's all the staff? And they're like, dude, you got to bring your staff. You got to hire your staff. He didn't know this. So he was completely unprepared to be president. And I think it was genuinely one of those, let me see if I could pull this off. I think this time around, though, I think there's a little bit of caring going on. Because honestly, and it's, I think all of this is fueled by news and social media. So things were kind of, it was, just very mellow. People had opinions one way or the other right up until Donald Trump announced his first run for presidency in 2015 or 14, whatever it was. When he, for some reason, as soon as he announced a run for presidency, all of a sudden left and right were more divided than ever. And when he became president, all of a sudden the left was trying to do everything that they can in spite of the right and vice versa. By the time Joe Biden won the presidency, it was already, that split was so bad that like Joe Biden's first day was literally just signing executive orders to undo everything that Trump had done. Right. Yeah. And then, that was like a rubber band that was pulled back, a slingshot that was pulled back and then let go. And everything that was done by Republicans was negated. And then Democrats did everything in the complete opposite, like extreme. Like, it wasn't like, oh, we are whatever, pick a topic. I don't know. It's not like we're saying, oh, we're going to be pro-abortion. No, they were like, people should have abortions even at 9 months. Like, like it was the extreme. And the abortion issue, I honestly believe that the Supreme Court should have never touched it. No. I personally believe like it should have just stayed the way it is. Plus, since we brought up abortion, if somebody wants to have an abortion, by all means. If that person is not ready to be a parent, or if they're too young, or if they're not financially capable or whatever, by all means, I think that you should have the right to do that, because at the end of the day, not only are you going to struggle for the rest of your life trying to raise a child, but then also that child is going to struggle the rest of their lives because they weren't raised properly. So, absolutely.
And no one should tell you what to do regarding that. No one.
I don't think, but personally, I don't even think that this was like, I don't even know why it came up. It wasn't a contested thing.
It should never have been touched.
It's just the Supreme Court just randomly decided we're rehearing this case. Like, it made no sense. Now, granted, it's up to individual states to decide what they want to do. I get it. It's not like they said that abortions are banned.
But it shouldn't be.
But here's my point is the Supreme Court, in trying to be fair, the Supreme Court didn't say you can't have an abortion. The Supreme Court said, hey, we're going to give this back to the states.
But they shouldn't.
But my point is that
I don't care what the point is here. Like, there's nothing to discuss. That should not have happened.
Okay, but my point is, let me get to my point. There's a little heated argument here. My point is that the Supreme Court themselves didn't do anything in terms of being anti-abortion. All they did was give it back to the states.
You can't sit there and tell me that the people in the Supreme Court didn't know how certain states would vote on that.
Well, no,
would
I mean,
that.
they probably have
So
an
why would they
inkling.
even? Yes. So why would they even bother? Like, what was the point?
I don't
of
know.
that?
Again, I agree with you. It should have never been touched. This was something that was established. That was, for decades we had established this. But then, so there was a reason I brought this up. So talking about news, right, and how things are only reported and how things are only when it suits the narrative. So during the last presidential campaign, right, Harris said, "I will make sure that I'm going to restore abortion rights."
She couldn't though, right? Like once
As far as I know, and again, I don't know everything, so maybe I'm wrong. Somebody's probably going to try to correct me on this. As far as I know, if the Supreme Court decided that that abortion is no longer a federal issue and it's a state issue, then that means that somebody in the federal government, including the president, wouldn't be able to change that.
But that doesn't make sense to me, because if they can put that in, why can't they take it back out?
Well, they didn't. It's the Supreme Court decides, right? So the Supreme Court even overrules the president in some cases.
So why can't they decide to take that back from the states?
The Supreme Court could,
Okay,
but Kamala Harris wouldn't.
but wouldn't she have some type of
No, she's not the Supreme
voice?
Court. No, she's the president. Sure, she could sign an executive order, and that'll go to the Supreme Court, who will say, "Hey, we already decided that this is a state issue."
Okay,
And
but
that order gets overturned.
I understand, but can't the president persuade them to take that back? Don't they have that amount of power to be able to make that type of change?
They can try to have a conversation about it to try to sway the Supreme Court, but ultimately it's up to the Supreme Court. So when somebody says that,
and I think that's why a lot of people are pissed off, because if you have the option to do that, why don't you do that? You know what I mean?
But okay, well, here's the other thing too, though, is as soon as that whole thing happened, it was the thing that they started. Essentially, the campaign ran on abortion rights. That was the big deciding factor, I feel. As far as what I saw, that was one of the big factors in this last presidential campaign. Now, the thing of it is that without being one-sided, if Democrats wanted to, right, if for example, Kamala Harris was sitting there talking about, "I'm going to make sure that we restore abortion rights." Okay, well, if you wanted to, you're the vice president. I'm sure you have some say. I'm sure you can get into the president's ear and say, "Hey, listen, why don't we just do this now before the next president comes in? Because if we win this election, we're going to have somebody that won't do it," right?
I agree with you, but like you said, campaign.
See, but this is my point, though,
that's probably what they wanted to hold on to push it. And I'm not saying that may or may not be the case. I don't know, but that's just,
they use it as a bargaining chip.
Yeah.
Because if they wanted to, if they were able to, and if they really gave a shit about abortion rights, they would have, while they were still in office, that president, vice president duo would have said, "Hey, you know what? We're going to make sure." And see, this is the thing, is if they wanted to, and if they could have, and this is what there's a whole point to this. If they could have done this, they would have done it, and they would have said, "Hey, listen, we just made sure that your abortion rights are secured. So vote for us moving forward," right? They couldn't do it. If they could have done it, they would have. But at what point did any news station tell you that, hey, they could do it right now, but they're not doing it? Why is that?
yeah.
All they did was said, "Oh, look, Donald Trump won't commit to saving abortion rights, while Kamala Harris has promised to do it if she becomes president."
Or maybe there's some kind of term in the candidacy, the race or whatever, that says if you're part of the overturning of that law or whatever it is, that the new set of the new president who comes into office can suggest that or can make that change.
Well, I don't know, because here's the thing is And it's not just one president that we're talking about. We're talking about if anybody cared that much about abortion rights, they've had 50 years. They've literally had 50 years to codify that, right? And then all of a sudden, after the Supreme Court changes their decision on it, they come in and say, oh, we're going to make sure we codify it if we win the election. Well, first of all, like I'm saying, whether you're talking about the party, the president, the whatever, you've had all this time to do it, and you haven't. When as soon as it happened, right? And it happened, when was it, like 21, 22 that the Supreme Court overturned it?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
It was around there. It was either 21 or 22. So if that was the case and you were so concerned with abortion rights that that's what you based your entire freaking campaign on, why didn't you, in the 2 years, 3 years that you had leading up to that election, why didn't you just do what you were promising to do?
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I have no idea.
But you see what I'm saying, though? It's like
you're asking.
But the thing is the point that I'm getting at is that the news was pushing that same bullshit story where, well, you know, one candidate is promising to restore abortion rights and the other candidate is basically not giving us any indication that he has that he wants to do that. But then aren't you being dishonest as a news organization if you're trying to push this bullshit story? But then, you know, and then that's the other thing too, is like, we didn't see that from any news organization, whether you're talking right wing or left wing. Like nobody was reporting that, hey, this is not doable. So why is that? I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
Also, why is it that like fact checking only happens when it's convenient to your story? Why is it that fact checking only happens when somebody says, oh, I think the COVID vaccine might not be 100% safe. And then all of a sudden the fact checkers jump out of the freaking bushes and attack you and say, no, it's 100% safe. There's never been a single person that got even a little bit sick off of this. Like bullshit. You know, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
So it's like, why are we listening to these same people that have proven themselves time and time again to be full of shit? It makes no sense.
All of them.
Every last one of them.
All of them.
And here's the thing is like, it's entertaining and it's fun, right? It's fun to have these debates and these arguments and to bring up did you hear what this guy said? And did you hear what this governor wants to do or whatever? It's fun to me, at least. But there are people that take this so seriously that father and son are fighting, that brother and sister are not speaking to each other. I'm like, you're losing your valued personal relationships over some asshole that doesn't even know that you exist. That is insane to me.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that's happened to. But
are people just that gullible that they think that it's worth, not gullible, I guess, or they're just to the point where they think it's worth losing their family over?
I think, people have their own values and they have their own morals. And if they're not surrounded by people who have the same thought process pretty much and the same values, they don't want to be part of those other people's lives. And that's fine for them. And that's what you want to do. But, I'm fine with knowing people who are different, who have different thoughts than I do.
I welcome it.
Obviously not being disrespectful or not having anything against me. You know what I mean? There's always a threshold, right?
Of course.
But it's good to hear people's perspectives that are different than mine.
Yeah.
That's how I educate myself.
Yeah.
That's how I learn about the world too. I listen to everything. I listen to every side and I make my own decision.
Well, and I feel like that's normal. It's normal to be.
I would hope so.
Well, and it's not just that though. It's also normal to welcome pushback, right?
Yeah.
It's normal to be
healthy conversations, healthy agreements, disagreements. Debates are normal. That's just a part of life.
That's how you grow. But you educate yourself. So almost lost a bunch of recordings, but luckily Mac they're on top of their shit. Somehow it shut down right before, I guess, with just a little bit of battery, and it managed to just like save everything to where it was.
That's good.
Yeah. Literally everything was just like right when it shut down.
Wow.
So
we're lucky, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't have it in me to bullshit my way through a conversation. Yeah, right. So it's like, luckily
today what?
Yeah. No, and that's the thing is, luckily it saved all that because all of that was not that was not scripted. So don't.
Well, nothing we do is scripted.
Well, I mean,
But-
other than like the 50 weird facts
Yeah.
kind of stuff, but yeah,
But our commentary is not.
our commentary is not. We did actually disagree on stuff.
Yeah. That's what makes a healthy marriage, y'all. Like,
Yeah, sometimes you just got to yell at each other.
yeah.
But yeah, that's fucking freaked me
Happy
out.
wife, happy life.
I was so frustrated. I was like, you know what? If that recording is lost, we're just gonna try again tomorrow because I don't have it. I was so upset that I was just like, I don't have it in me to see.
You know, you hid that very well, though. I could not tell that you were
Oh,
upset.
I was pissed.
You could see the thing about you is you can be upset, but you can't tell for the most part. Me, any little inconvenience, you could completely read it on my face.
Oh yeah.
Which, you know, it's been 30 some years of that. It is what it is. It is what it is.
30 something, huh?
30 some years.
This is why I love it.
Hey, I'm still in my 30 some years. Okay.
Yeah, barely.
Calling me out. Almost.
Anyway, back to what we were talking about. I don't. Where did we leave off?
I don't remember.
We were saying something about news and presidents. Anyhow, point is
We need younger people in office.
yeah, if you want to get into a political discussion, we need term limits, we need younger
Right.
people in office, and we need people who aren't career politicians,
Yeah.
people that actually lived and you know, just operated in normal society as normal people. Because that's what it was at one point.
Yeah.
It was, you know, the people that just lived in the city that they represented.
And how fun would it be if they had a suggestion box,
I'm all for that.
right?
I'm all for it. I think,
like a website you can go to and just like
yeah, that'd be cool.
you're, allotted, I don't know how many a year, for example.
No, you could just keep throwing them out. And
But like you
something-
want like viable things, like usable things, right? You don't want a million suggestions in like one day. Like you want to you want to be able to have people that can vet through all those and
Yeah, that's
know?
going to be the problem is trying to sift through all the bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, all the suggestions that are like, I suggest you resign, you know, 'cause
Yeah.
there's going to be millions of those.
yeah.
But yeah, that'd be cool. Like if you had, or, you know, you create it in a way where it's like somebody makes a suggestion and then the other people vote on that suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
And if it gets enough like votes of, you know, basically
People agreeing with what you're
enough
saying,
likes,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Then it goes to the next step. And
Yeah.
it's not just like a flooded inbox of bullshit.
Yeah, because sometimes it's like, stop making these decisions for me. I didn't want this.
You know, that's
like
that's the thing is the whole idea that we're, you know, our elected officials are being elected because and that we're entrusting them to make decisions on our part. I think that worked at a certain point where cities and states were not as diverse as they are today. So perfect example of that is California. You look at California's like we still get only 2 senators, right? As far as electoral votes for presidential elections, we have a huge chunk of them. But the state is not, you know, contrary to what people think, the state is not just a bunch of far left liberals. Like there are also a lot of conservatives in the state of California.
it's kind of like I think split.
It's probably close. It's probably like 60-40.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the whole Central Valley is basically Republican. There are some cities like, even like San Diego is pretty, you know, San Diego is probably like another 60-40 split where you do have a sizable chunk of conservatives. Even in LA, you drive around, you talk to people. Well, not drive around, but if you go around talking to people, you'll find that there's a lot of conservatives in LA as well. But, you know, those voices aren't heard because the elected representatives are almost always
Yeah.
Democrats.
And with other you know, states, blue states, you know.
or red states too.
Yeah, there
you know?
some people are just not heard, and it's
Yeah.
important to hear.
I think that we need to restructure that a little bit. I think we need to maybe, and this is getting a whole different discussion, but we need to explore that option of letting people's voices be heard by perhaps, you know, splitting electoral votes, by maybe adding senators to states instead of just having 2.
Has it always been like this? Like how we vote? Do you know?
As far as electoral college,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd assume
I'm going to do
so.
some research because I'm really curious to know
I'd
how it started and when it started.
Yeah, I'm assuming that it's always been like this, but then again, I'm too young to remember back in the day.
Is this how George Washington did it?
I don't know.
You know?
That's a good point. But honestly, too, though, is like I say we just go with the popular vote. Let's let the individuals decide. Like why are X number of million of people X what? I just like
I know what you're trying to say though.
Like, so for example, why do 5 million people's voices be basically discounted because 5.5 million people voted the other way? You know what I mean? And then like all those electoral votes just go to that one representative.
But that's the thing. It's like, I feel like in any other type of voting situation, that's how it is. That's the popular vote, except for the presidency, right?
A lot of other stuff. Yeah. Like state propositions, stuff like that. It's always based on the popular vote. It's like presidents should not be any different. Like we should just.
That's why I'm so curious to find out why we do it this way. It's such an.
I don't know. I feel like this was at some point somebody had the bright idea that this was going to always win their party or get their party the win, and they're like, we should definitely do this, and it's probably backfired.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the whole point of this thing was not supposed to be a political podcast episode. It was supposed to be a free speech episode, but I think. Well, and I think that's probably the one place where it shows up the most is in politics, because I personally feel like depending on who you're in support of, and the types of things that you're in support of, the types of laws that you're in support of, your voice is either heard loudly or it's completely thrown out the window. My point, for example, if you post something on social media in favor of whatever, like you're in favor of gun rights, all of a sudden you're looked at in a completely different light than somebody that's as in support of gun control. Or if you, for example, are, a couple of years ago was a perfect example during COVID. It was like, people
literally shunning you for not getting
they stopped short of shaving your head and marching you through the street naked while yelling shame. Literally,
for us to be able to go anywhere, we had to show our cards, to us to be able to keep working.
But see, this is what I'm saying is like there were people that were posting their opinions on social media, and because those opinions didn't align with whatever narrative was being pushed, you're automatically sometimes you're banned, sometimes you were, your friends and family were like, what are you talking about? You're a whack job. Like there were people that lost their jobs because they posted a controversial opinion on something. And even when it came down to the election, people were literally losing, like we talked about, people were losing family members. They were losing friends. They were losing all kinds of stuff because they had an opinion one way or the other.
Right.
But I feel like unfortunately, I feel like that's a little one-sided. Like, I feel like people who will post all day long about how Trump and Elon Musk are Nazis and this and that, they get away with it. And people who don't have that opinion are just kind of like, okay, let them have that opinion.
I just don't.
But the opposite, can you imagine if... And I know this has been beat to death, but but
also I think it's because of where we live.
Well, to an extent,
I'm sure there's stuff like this going on in other parts of the country that are reverse of this,
but to an extent,
the opposite of this.
When it comes to online, like when it comes to social media and stuff like that, like you can't say whatever you want because social media is also taking a stance. I mean, so much so that Zuckerberg came out on the Joe Rogan podcast and basically talked about how the Biden administration, like the people from the Biden administration would contact his workers and yell at them, berate them and cuss at them, telling them to remove stuff that was about COVID.
Wow.
I mean, that's more than just taking a stance, though. That was like they were being essentially threatened to do as the government says. Like that's kind of a scary
They're
thought.
being bullied.
Well, not just bullied though, but it was free speech was out the window at that point. It's like, oh, somebody has another opinion on, like doctors couldn't say, we don't think the vaccine is the best thing. We think that you should do X, Y, and Z instead to prevent yourself from getting sick. And those doctors were being fired from their jobs. Like they were being let go from hospitals and stuff like that. It's like for having an opinion different than the mainstream narrative.
Oh, that whole thing was a mess.
COVID, I think, and I feel like it's coming out, and you probably remember this, you might not. I want to say it was only a couple of months into it. It was probably like in summer at one point, and I distinctly remember saying this. I was like, I feel like 10 years down the line that we're going to find out that COVID was just a giant exercise in control to see how much they could control people.
I don't agree with that.
I don't think that COVID was bullshit. I'm just saying that I think that they used COVID to basically say, okay, well, we have this thing going on. While this is going on, let's see what we can get people to do and not do.
I don't think it's that deep, honestly. We just didn't know what it was. People were freaked out. They didn't handle it correctly.
But then you have certain states had zero restrictions at no point in time. Some states
because what are they going to do though? Honestly, like.
But no,
what are
my
you
point
gonna do?
is like, for example, in California, they held this bullshit like the mask mandates and
and people still got sick.
But they held these restrictions in the outdoor dining and the indoor dining, whatever. They held all these restrictions up until I think it was like the end of 2022 or something for like 2 years. And then there were other states that did absolutely nothing. And California still had more infection than other states.
California is also a lot more populated than other states.
Well, I get that, but there's still other states still have cities where it's condensed like that.
Yeah, but we haven't been everywhere in the country, so I don't know how people deal with it. In,
my point is
different states, but
of course, but you have certain states. I mean, certain states, yeah, they're mostly rural, but then you still have a big city in that state where people live like they do in LA. And I'm not saying the number of infections, I'm saying the rate of infection. The rate of infection for some reason was still higher in the states that had mask mandates and crazy restrictions on everything.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
But you couldn't speak against that. No. That's the point, is like you couldn't say that, oh, this is bullshit because it's not working and we're still getting people sick. It was just like, well, no, you can't say that because we've decided that you can't say that,
Right.
It was like for whatever reason, there was a period of time where your opinion was not just didn't matter, but your opinion was all of a sudden dangerous because it went against that narrative that was being put out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, COVID was a whole debacle. I mean, and see, I feel like whether it was COVID, whether it was the whole political craziness that was going on at the beginning and through COVID, I feel like COVID changed the world.
Absolutely.
Like not in a oh, now we take things more seriously as far as like health and this and that. No, I feel like people changed.
100%.
People's mentality changed. People's tolerances changed. People stopped acting human for some reason. All of a sudden, like people don't know how to talk to people anymore.
We don't want to interact.
It's not just don't know how to interact, but like, for the longest time and even till now, it's like, you would go to the grocery store and you ask somebody for help with something and they look at you like you're bothering them. It's like, dude, this is your fucking job.
Yeah.
Do your job.
Or something else that, comes to mind is if someone is sneezing or coughing in public.
Oh,
it's just I it's like I don't do it on purpose, but I'm like, oh my God, are they sick?
No,
like,
I just notice it now.
Yeah, I notice all of that.
We never did, but then like with COVID, it was like it programmed our brains to start noticing that for some reason.
Yep.
And it's
that's unhealtly.
It's definitely
to be.
Yeah, we should not be that way.
Yeah.
But I gotta wonder what that's gonna do to kids that were growing up during that time.
I think they'll forget it.
Well, no, not that. Like kids that were supposed to be in, for example, a kid was 5 years old. He was supposed to be starting kindergarten, first grade.
Those fundamental, like
that, social interactions and learning to, making friends and learning to share and social cues and all this kind of stuff.
That'll
I feel like these kids missed out on
for sure
substantial growth.
Absolutely. And even kids in high school who missed like lifetime, like life changing events like prom and graduation and things like that. Like they weren't able to
the senior trip.
To go to those things. Yeah. Like that's, growing up, that was, we looked forward to things like that. That was like our kind of like our rite of passage, right? Into like life.
Yeah.
But they didn't get that. And that's so sad.
No. And then on top of that too, it's,
or women giving birth, like not being able to bring their family in there or having visitors and just being alone. Like,
or the opposite, people that couldn't go to funerals.
Yeah.
Because you can only have like, what was it? It was like 4 people at a funeral or something. Like,
it's crazy.
Especially when it was like outside.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, we're outside. There's fresh air all around us.
Right.
We don't have to stand right next to each other. We can spread out. You can have 50 people at a funeral. People aren't going to die.
Missing birthdays and weddings and just being able to live.
Well,
your everyday life.
The biggest screwed up part of all that is that we were told that this is what's going on and this is what you can and can't do. But then we saw the people telling us that we're doing
everything. Yeah.
Like Newsom having his fucking, his dinner at the French Laundry. Like,
or Hollywood still being open. Like I get it that contributes to our economy.
Was testing like crazy.
Yeah.
Hollywood was like
of course.
daily COVID.
But here's the thing though. They were charging so much money back then for people like us who wanted to get COVID tests. And there was like $100 to $200 per test.
Yeah.
If you remember.
Rapid tests. Yep.
Imagine how much money these people were spending testing these.
Well, it was it's a business. I mean,
yeah, but because they're contributing to our economy, they had to stay open. But everyone else's businesses had to go under, and we couldn't do anything. Like,
so what was the most screwed up thing that I saw during COVID was I saw this video of this woman who owned a restaurant in Sherman Oaks.
I think I saw that.
Who had outdoor seating? Who was told that she can't have her restaurant open, but literally in the same parking lot. The same type of outdoor seating that she had in the same parking lot they had set up for a Hollywood film crew. And she's like, how come they get to have outdoor seating to eat and I can't?
And she spoke on it and didn't make a difference.
The funny thing is not only did it not make a difference, but there were people talking crap to her, basically saying like, well, you're going to spread COVID. It's like, what about those people?
Yeah.
They're going to spread COVID.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
It's maddening.
Hypocritical is what it is.
Well, and the hypocrisy is one thing, but it's like, it's one thing to be told that you shouldn't say this or you can't say that or you can't have an opinion on this. But it's another thing when it was literally ruining people's lives. People were losing their businesses, their homes. People lost their lives.
Yes.
Because they sat at home and went freaking crazy. Or, they were talking about how there was more cases of child abuse because kids were sitting at home and the parents couldn't handle their kids being at home all the time. There were more cases of people getting divorced because people were sitting at home and they couldn't spend that much time
away.
Together. Yeah. So yeah, that really did fuck up the world. But
then there were people like you who were out working the entire time and meeting people the entire time.
But we can't say that because that goes against the narrative.
Yeah.
So that's the funny thing is for a year and 9 months, I was out working. I was meeting with, who knows, anywhere from 15 to 100 people a day. And they were always different people. It's not like they were the same people. And I only got sick after taking the COVID vaccine because they forced me to take it. So when after I was forced to take that vaccine, literally you can't have an opinion on the vaccine. Either you take it or you lose your job.
Yeah.
I think it was a month later I got sick. I got COVID.
I remember that.
It was about a month and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
A month and a half, somewhere around there. But yeah, for the year and 9 months that I was out a vaccine and walking around and meeting people and talking to people, occasionally shaking hands, I didn't get sick.
Knock on wood.
Well, but that's the thing is if you go online and you start saying that, then all of a sudden you're a you're
I think there's a lot has come out with
now.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I don't know if you remember, and I think a lot of people don't remember how crazy things were during in the height of COVID in 2020, 2021. People were literally yelling at each other about how you're going to kill everybody's grandmas. And,
Yep.
you had asshole comedians on TV talking about rest in peace, Wheezy. Yeah. Like bullshit like that. They were allowed to say all that shit, but God forbid you said that you don't think that the vaccine is that effective, or you went online and you said, I'm afraid of taking a vaccine that has been untested. And all of a sudden you were the problem.
Yeah.
You can't have an opinion.
They made it seem like if you don't take it, then you're going to kill people because you're going to get sick and you're going to spread it.
Well, okay. So, but also
my body, my choice. So I'm an advocate of that. So just do what's right for you.
But here's the thing too, though, is you had in the beginning, they're like, hey, there's this vaccine. If you take it, you won't get sick. You won't get anybody else sick. Okay, great. Everybody took the vaccine, or a bunch of people took the vaccine. Then a few months later, it was, oh, well, you can still get it, but you won't get anybody else sick.
Or you'll get it, but it won't be that bad.
But then, and then it was, oh, but now you can get it and you could still get other people sick.
Yeah.
So now take this booster.
Yeah. Yep. I know.
But I mean, it was just, it was complete bullshit from the beginning. Like they had no idea how effective or not effective that whole vaccine thing was. They said whatever the hell they wanted to say. They were able to get away with it, and nobody got punished for the fact that they lied to the American people.
It was all just,
not just the American people, the world.
It's just them testing things out.
But here's my point is I understand that it was an unknown, right? Or it was supposed to be an unknown. We won't get into the whole lab leak theory and all that bullshit. The fact is that they sat there and they passed off opinions as facts. And these were supposed to be people that we trusted. These were supposed to be the people that were running the health of the country. These are the people that are telling us that, yes, you should wear a mask, you should take a vaccine, whatever. And we know that this vaccine is 100% safe, but you don't know that.
Yeah.
And I would have respect for these people if they went on TV and said, hey, you know what? We don't think this vaccine is 100% safe. Actually, no vaccine is 100% safe. No medicine is 100% safe. So we can't
say that. They're not going to be able to sell anything if they say that.
But see, that's what I was getting at. It was a sales tactic.
Yeah.
You can tell me we don't. I feel like more people would have gotten vaccinated if they would have said.
I wouldn't have gotten if I knew that. I'm just as dumb.
But my point is if they would have said, we don't think that, yes, there are issues with this vaccine, but the issues are very small. The issues are not that common. So we think that this is our best bet against this COVID thing.
Yes.
But instead of saying that, they got up on TV, and even when people said, hey, there's cases of people getting sick from this, they said, no, that's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting sick from this. Don't tell me that. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to my face like that.
Yeah. I agree with you. But also you can't really believe everything that you're hearing, right? Like,
no, I get
the whole dumb thing that was like just a joke, but like, when I took it, I'm just like, I know they just did this. Like, I know they just made this vaccine. I know that it hasn't been around for a long time. Well, so I know that it comes with risks, but unfortunately at that time, if I wanted to live my life, or if anyone wanted to relive their life here in California, you had to take it.
No, but the whole thing is that it's people, and again, these are people in places of power and influence, were on TV saying whatever they wanted to say and got zero repercussions for, even when we found out they were full of shit. Like when we found out about certain people lying straight to Congress and saying, no, we've never funded any labs in Wuhan. And then we find out that that's complete bullshit. What happened to that guy?
And that's with anything.
Isn't that like a contempt of Congress kind of charge?
That's with anything.
I mean,
this is not surprising.
It's not, but it's bullshit. It's because if you're called to testify, if I'm called to testify in front of Congress for whatever reason, or in front of a court, and I perjure myself, and I'm found out to have perjured myself, I'm going to prison.
Yeah.
Or
what is it? I heard on TV like a while ago. It's a rules for thee, but not for me.
Oh yeah, that's been a thing for a while now.
Yeah.
I think that gained a lot of popularity right around the time that Newsom was caught at the restaurant dining indoors without a mask in close proximity to other people, while they were telling us that we can't visit our parents because we're going to kill them.
Do you remember how terrified we were though?
Yeah, in the very beginning, it was scary.
Yeah, and plus, having parents that aren't in the best, health conditions, where we're like more
older people.
And who are older, we were more, we were more weary of like seeing them and like being around them, and we wanted to make sure that they stayed as healthy as possible. But it's just sad, honestly, just thinking back on it and how much we did lose as a people.
No, absolutely.
During that time,
it's
me personally, I can say I don't want to touch anything. Like I'm just like I'm more so much more of a germaphobe now than I was before, and I don't want that. Like I don't know.
Well, and the thing that I've also learned is well, not learned, but what I've been programmed to because of everything that I saw is I don't state my opinion on stuff anymore. I literally don't state my opinion on COVID. I see people still wearing a mask. I don't honestly, I don't care to, because it's not, you do you. To each their own is what I always say. It's not just that. It's like, I don't care what those people do, but if somebody like that were to say something to me about, bring up COVID, I give them neutral responses because I'm literally afraid to state my opinion.
I'm not afraid. I just don't care to, honestly.
No, but
I don't care to.
My point is I
get what you're saying.
I've been asked directly what my opinion is on stuff. And I'm just like, well, it is what it is. Like I gotta give a neutral opinion. I don't really know what to make of this kind of thing. And I've just had to just keep my mouth shut about it. But it's like, why should I have to silence? You don't have to, though. But why should I have to silence myself?
You don't have to.
But I do.
But because you don't have to.
I'll be canceled and I'll probably lose my job. You know what I mean? Like this is the problem with you can't but if okay, let's go back to COVID. COVID is a perfect example of this. During COVID, if you were to meet with somebody and it was at work or whatever, and that person said, "Hey, this is kind of crazy how scary this stuff is," right? It's kind of you kind of know what their take on everything is. But if you said, well, I think it's complete bullshit, chances are you're getting called into HR.
Yeah, because it wasn't, though. That's the thing.
But
people actually did die from it. I
get that, but my point is you should be able to you should be allowed to have your opinion.
Freedom of speech, exactly like you said earlier.
But you should be allowed to express your opinion because you're not doing it on a public platform to millions of people. This is you talking to one other person. You should be allowed to just say, hey, I don't buy too much into this. Yeah, I think it's out there, but I don't think it's as serious as they're saying. Because
I think it's all in the way you say it. You saying it like that versus saying it's all bullshit is very different. So
granted, but even saying something like that, you get pushback from people. Like there are people that will give you crap for even saying that,
and vice versa.
Serious.
Again, conversations. Normal.
Yeah, but I just think that people need to, I guess let's leave it with this, is I think that people need to be a little more receptive of differing opinions without flying off the handle because somebody doesn't agree with them.
I agree.
And
that's really in any case.
That's with everything, yeah. Because people will literally go crazy because somebody doesn't agree with them and they'll start berating them or start just, call them names and walk away. It's like, dude, we can have different opinions.
You can call me a sissy all you want, but I choose to remove myself from situations like that because I'm like, I'm good.
No, and yeah, I tend not to engage with people that are that passionate about anything because I realize that if somebody's that passionate, they're just not gonna want to hear a different opinion. But I think that that's how you stop growing as a person and as a nation. Is you need to be receptive of an opinion other than your own.
Absolutely.
And you should be open to hearing the other side because sometimes there's some knowledge on the other side of what your opinion is.
I agree.
You can't just surround yourself with the
Just
same
one single thought
voices.
process.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's not how it works, you know?
And that's what a lot of people do is they surround themselves with that one voice, because what happens is they go on social media and their opinion is reinforced because they're fed all the same stuff based on that algorithm, and they end up with a very one-sided opinion about something, and they completely shut out the other side because to them the other side is poison.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not always the case. Just hear it out. You might learn something from it.
Just stay open, y'all.
Just stay open. That's it. Just be don't-
susceptible to
Well, just don't
other
just don't
things.
close yourself off
Yeah.
to what else is out there, because that's how you're gonna learn. You're gonna.
There's a
grow.
whole big world out there with a lot of varying opinions, and it's okay.
Plus, it's very childish to just throw a tantrum every time somebody doesn't agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, anyway, yeah. Aside from this technical glitch, I think we hopefully have everything.
Cool.
We're probably gonna have a little screwed up section there, but anyway, until next time.
Till next time.
Thanks for watching.